Well, good morning and welcome to the Really Helpful Club. And thank you for joining us. I'm Sarah Austin. This is the latest in our In Conversation With series, where we shine the spotlight on leading entrepreneurs, business owners, and experts. And we've spoken to some truly inspirational people throughout this year, and they've each shared their journeys with us. And we're looking forward to meeting and hearing from many more people in the months and years to come. Now, we hear what inspired them to start their business, we hear what drives them, what makes them tick, and they share with us some of the things that they've learned along the way. And this morning, I'm going to be talking to Emma Cowley. Emma is an investment manager and she's the Divisional Director of the leading wealth manager, Brewin Dolphin. And we're very excited because we're going to be hearing from Emma later this month. Emma's going to be giving one of the keynote talks at our Back to Business conference, all about how to get financially fit, which obviously is really important, I think very relevant and pertinent topic. And this morning, we're going to be learning more about Emma. We're going to be hearing about her own journey into the investment world and her passion for teaching the younger generations to understand more about their financial well-being. Now, Emma, welcome. Welcome to our audience. Welcome to the Really Helpful Club. And before I kick off and ask you any questions, love you to just say hello to the audience. But I also know, because you are from a wealth management business, I'm sure you'd like to just sort of preface our conversation with some sort of a risk warning about anything that you might be sharing with us. So just over to you to say hello.
Thank you. Yes, I know you understand how regulated my industry is, so hopefully you won't mind, and hopefully your listeners won't mind either if I just a couple of risk warnings. I do take what I do very seriously, and as with anything, there are risks involved. I would hate for anyone not to understand that. So the value of your investments and any income from them can fall, and you can get back less than you invested. Tax treatment does depend on the individual circumstances of each person, and it may change in the future. Any information provided is only as an example, and it's not a recommendation to pursue a particular strategy, and any opinions that we may talk about are generally mine and not necessarily held throughout Brewin Dolphin.
Brilliant. Emma, thank you very much. And now let's sort of begin. I mean, it's so interesting, I think, is someone's journey is sometimes, more interesting than necessarily the destination. And I know you've had a really interesting journey into investment management. So, tell us more about you, your background, and how you come to be working in investment and now with Brewin Dolphin.
Sure, yeah, it's not a straight line. I think, you meet so many people and you think how they got to where they are and how they became the person that they are. But quite often you dig a little bit, ask a few questions, and you find that that's a really interesting story. Mine, I'm not necessarily saying mine is compellingly interesting, but it's certainly not what everyone expects. When I was at school, I really struggled with what I wanted to do. I had lots of friends who knew exactly where they were going and had that whole future mapped out, but I didn't really have that calling. And I changed A-levels several times during that first term of sixth form to a random mix. In the end, I ended up doing maths, biology, and art, mainly because I wanted to keep my options open. I was so sort of worried about making a decision that might end up being wrong that I just tried to keep as many directions open as possible. And when I finished school, I decided to try something a little bit different. I'd always been quite musical and creative, so I went to Italia Conti in London to do a singing course for a year. So very different from normal maths, biology, and art A-levels. And then when I finished stage school, I went on and worked with a music producer for a year, recording music that you will never be able to find. I've always enjoyed singing, I still do, but during that time, whilst I enjoyed it, I just thought, this isn't quite right for me. I'm a bit bored, if I'm perfectly honest, and felt that I needed to use my brain a little bit more. So again, took a slight directional change and decided to go to university. So I went off to Cardiff University to study business economics, again, trying to keep my options open, still didn't know what I wanted to do. But the reason I chose Cardiff was my dad's parents were Welsh. We'd been brought up as Welsh rugby fans. So definite sort of calling to go and live there for 3 years, and I had the best time. It was so much fun, but I still didn't know, even when I finished my degree, top of my class, but I still didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew what I didn't want to do. Sort of fell into banking when I left university. I started at what was RBS in their FX back office, and then moved to what was Merrill Lynch. And I was quite lucky. At this point, banks couldn't quick enough. That's not true now. I think the only route in now is through the grad scheme, and that's probably a lot smaller than it was back then, but they quick enough. So I started again in FX back office and worked my way through into the front office, and I was a junior on the equity derivatives sales and structuring desk when the financial crisis happened. So again, I consider myself to be lucky. I know that sounds odd when you talk about the financial crisis, but because I was junior, it meant that I kept my job. A lot of senior people were being made redundant, so I kept my job, and I learned so much through that period. It was horrible, stressful, terrible, everything that you think it would have been. But I was exposed to so much, and I had so much opportunity to learn. Like the learning opportunity was vast. And I don't think that I would be who I am now or where I am now if I hadn't have been through that. Also, again, lucky, I had a good boss. Not everyone in banking could say that, but at the time I had a great boss, and in his words, I spoke derivatives, but he felt I didn't really have that sort of rounded background because I hadn't done the grad scheme. So he discovered that the CISI was doing a law master's course, so he encouraged me to do that. So I did that alongside the ridiculous hours that we were doing back then. I managed to sort of pack some studying into weekends and evenings, and did that wealth management masters. And it was at that point that I finally had that light bulb moment. I was like, well, the more I learned about wealth management, the more I thought, this is what I want to do. So that was quite exciting, but I couldn't really take any action on it. I had to wait a few years to sort of make that happen, because by this point I got married to my colleague. we were part of a 2-person team, and it was still horrible and stressful and not a great place to work, so I couldn't walk away and leave him there. So I had to sort of wait a little bit, but I eventually made it happen. And actually the fact that, like I said, the fact that I was where I was, I consider myself to be quite lucky. I knew a lot of the wealth management firms and teams in London, so I knew a lot about the side that I wanted to go and work with. So I'd actually kind of lined up Brewin Dolphin and that particular team from a distance as where I wanted to be, and I just had to sort of make it happen. And I think as a sort of the day of starting the new job loomed, I started to panic a little bit, because in my mind for a while I thought this is going to be my dream job, and then I started thinking, what if it's not? What if it's not everything I hoped and expected it to be? But I'm still there 7 years later. So like I said, not a straight line, but that's how I got to where I am now. And it's not been an easy journey, but I feel lucky for various things that have happened, and grateful for where I now find myself.
I think it's really interesting that there's so many things, and thank you for sharing that, and so candidly as well, which I think is, again, is really nice. But actually, again, if there are people watching this who are parents of, or of graduates or school leavers, I know the number one question they always get asked is, what do you want to do? And it is that dreaded question, because, it is very unusual to know at that age what you do want to do. And I think also, our working lives are becoming longer and longer. And, many of us are now having portfolio careers. Many of us are taking those punctuation marks to change direction. And I think you're an example of someone who, you took your time to find your place, as it were, where you felt comfortable. But it was that all along the way, you continue to invest in yourself, in your skill set. You talked about the learning opportunities, and I think the importance of having fun as well. We're not just on this planet to be a sort of a grindstone, as it were. And so that combination of a gradual sort of building of self-awareness together with that skill set is why perhaps you are so comfortable in the place that you have landed, and in the industry, and in the specialism in which you operate. Which is why I think, one of the things I notice, Emma, we've had many conversations, is that every time I talk to you, you're always smiling, and you clearly love your job. So so on that note, tell us more about about Brewin Dolphin, and as a business. You said you knew plenty of the other wealth management firms. What makes Brewin different?
I think generally when people look at the finance sector, so you would look at banking and you would consider wealth management and many other things to be within the financial sector. I think a lot of people think it's all the same, and it isn't. My experience of banking and wealth management, they're very, very different, even though that you would put them in the same sector. One of the things that I really like about Brewin is that, yeah, I am an employee, but I have space to be me. You want to explore opportunities, and it's quite entrepreneurial in that sense. Even though you are part of something, you are an employee, I still feel like I'm in charge of being me. I'm not a number. When Bank of America, when Merrill Lynch became Bank of America, at that point I think I was one of 300,000 employees. Very hard to feel like you matter when you're in that kind of in that sort of situation. Like at Brewin, I do genuinely feel like I'm part of something, and I think a lot, I touched on it when I talked about looking from the outside at the different wealth management firms. One of the things that really did draw me to Brewin was the people that I knew that worked there. I think, if you can work in a place where you actually like and trust your colleagues, not something you can often say in banking, although I did find my husband there, so
yes.
I was there.
Hopefully you feel grateful for that.
Yes, I do. But I think
remember you're being recorded.
Yeah. If you can like and trust your colleagues, then that I think that's part of why I do enjoy my job so much, because I do. They are great people, and I knew that from a distance, and that's part of the reason that sort of pulled me to Brewin. But I also really, really like the fact that it is all about the clients. There's a lot of firms where it's all about bringing in new business, bringing new funds under management, growing, and that is part of business. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, but I think Brewin, it is very much, we care about the clients. Everything is done from a sort of point of view of how can we make this better for the clients. So yeah, I really like that, and I don't think that's the same everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a little bit about Brewin, and I think that is, again, just lifting the bonnet, as it were, and understanding the differences between firms, the ethos, the culture. It is incredibly important, both, as you say, from the perspective of someone considering working there, or from the perspective of someone considering becoming a client. These are long-term relationships, and therefore the people, the ethos, it matters. It absolutely matters. And so so let's drill a little bit further. Tell us about what you do for Brewin, and you talked about the entrepreneurial opportunities, and and the opportunity where it's all about the clients. How do you help your clients?
I think the main thing that when I sort of talk about how I work with clients is it's not transactional. Yes, we invest, we do transactions, but it's absolutely not transactional when it comes to it's a relationship that underpins it all. I spend a lot of time getting to know my clients and understanding them, understanding what makes them tick, what their dreams and aspirations are, trying to really understand where they want to go, how they feel about risk, and how they feel about ethical investments, for example. I try and understand as much as I can about them, go away and hopefully do the work for them to make those dreams happen. I guess my day job is all about making sure that I make the most of my clients' tax allowances, and make sure that what I'm doing is tax efficient, and finding investments for them that would do what they need them to do and that they're comfortable with. Do they need an income or growth? It's a bit of a jigsaw puzzle, if I'm honest. There's lots of different pieces that can all fit together differently, and it's about finding the right pieces for that particular client and putting it together to create the picture that they want. People save for a number of different reasons. Some some it's about a comfortable retirement, for some it's about bringing that retirement as early as possible. For some it might be, you know, helping future generations, or maybe it's for care that they might need at some point down the line. I work with my clients to construct a plan, work out what they can do, and then try and sort of piece it together in as tax efficient way as possible. And then I just get on and do it for them. You know, there are aspects that people can do themselves, but few have the time, the will, or the skill to do that. So if they can outsource it to me, it means that they don't need to worry. They know that I'm doing their ISAs for them, that I'm following the markets, that, you know, I'm finding investments for them and I'm monitoring and review it. They don't have to worry. They that is taken away from them, and it's just happening. And hopefully we work together. We keep sort of making sure that we know what's going on. We keep reassessing. You know, life happens, things change. Sort of flexing the plan to make sure that it still gets them to achieve those dreams and those goals that they have. And I think over the last 18 months, you know, it's been really, really rewarding over the last 18 months to be able to do what I do for clients, because, you know, put yourself back in March and April last year where it felt like the sky was falling, being able to take that stress away and just, you know, allow them to deal with everything else that we were worrying about. That sort of, you know, that's my day job. And I think I always try and encourage people to think of me as a trusted advisor. So don't pigeonhole me as just something to do with finance. If you've got questions or issues that aren't finance related, still, you know, give me a call, drop me an email, because I might be able to help. I might know someone who I can introduce you to that might be able to help. So yeah, that's in a nutshell what I try and do for the clients that I work with.
And it's the backbone to everything we do. You know, if you've got that long-term plan in place, if you've got that trust, then actually it frees that person up, as you say, to be able to have those dreams to start with. And there is a route to pursuing those and hopefully to achieving those. So moving on, you know, on that note, you talked a little bit about, you know, the sense of reward. What do you find most rewarding about the work you do?
I think it is that, you know, what I touched on there, just taking that stress away and allowing people to be able to get on with the rest of their lives. Yeah, I know I'm not saving lives. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nurse. I've got friends that do that. They are incredible. I'm not putting myself in that bracket, but what I do does make a difference. You know, when I was in banking, what I did was so incredibly specialist and niche. I would often try and explain it to my mum, and she would never get it. She would just proudly tell people, oh, she works in the system. Before the financial crisis, when you could be proud about such a thing. Yeah, what I'm doing now, you know, I genuinely get to see the difference that I'm making, and you know, working with clients, earning their trust, working with them to achieve, you know, their goals and their aspirations. That's amazing. And, you know, like I said, over the last 18 months, I've had so many thank yous that I think doing what I do, it's quite easy to sort of forget these kind of things or brush over them. But certainly in the last 18 months, I think we've all learned to be a little bit kinder, maybe. And the amount of thank yous I've had, it's just, I know that I'm helping and I'm making a difference, and that is really rewarding. But equally, you know, I know, you know, I'm in a lot of financial wellbeing work that we do at Brewin Dolphin, trying to educate and support school kids, but also we work with companies to try and get in front of their employees to help them with financial wellbeing issues. That I find incredibly rewarding, and I love the work that we're doing in that space, because I just think it's so important that we're able to provide that support and help to people who are you know, struggling and don't know where to turn.
This is what I love about this series is I think, Emma, you are my 30th or 31st interviewee. And it is so fascinating because we talk to so many different people, you know, whether they as someone who runs their own events company, to yourself, to, you know, all sorts of people, you know, from different walks of life. And, you know, what is a sort of given is they're good at what they do and they run their business well and everything else. But the passion, the importance, this sense of reward, and this sense of, you know, making a difference, taking the stress away. I've heard that before, and it's genuine. I see your face light up. You know, it matters, and it comes back to your end client. You know, we are we're all living our own journeys, our own dreams, hopefully fulfilling our dreams along the way. And enabling that is incredibly rewarding. So I absolutely so get it. And sort of moving on that same note, I've heard you talk a lot about the importance of having a long-term financial strategy that, as again, you said, it needs to match your appetite for risk. You can't have one necessarily without the other. So can you talk a bit about matching, aspiration with risk and lifetime goals, and what that could mean to the person who doesn't necessarily au fait with financial speak?
Sure. I mean, I think it's really, really important to have a plan. Now, I would say that because I'm one of those really organized people. I know not everyone's brain works the way that mine does, but I think most people have goals that they're aiming for or hoping for. And I think any kind of goal, it's not just going to happen unless you're incredibly lucky. Now, luck is part of it. I think we all do need luck, regardless of what we're talking about. But I think if you don't have, certainly when it comes to sort of finances, if you don't have some sort of structural plan in place, it's not just going to happen. And so you could miss out or potentially not even get there. I don't think it matters whether you're a natural saver or not. You're going to fall into one of those two. I think even if you are a natural saver, you still need some sort of structure or plan in place. In layman's terms, if you like, it's really hard to pack to go on a holiday if you don't know the destination. It's really, really hard to motivate yourself if you don't know why you're doing something. So I think having a plan is crucial, but it's not one size fits all. I think we're all individuals. We're all bespoke in our own ways. Our lives are all different, and they all change and flex differently as well. So you can't just sort of buy a plan off the shelf and stick to it rigidly. It needs to be flexible, because there's so much that is out of our control. It's one of those things that it does need a bit of work. You do need to sort of check in on it and sort of make your plan flex with what your life's doing. And as you said then, this is another reason why it's not one size fits all, because we all feel differently about risk, and we all feel differently about ethical issues, for example, which will impact, how you invest. If I talk about my vague plan a little bit, then hopefully that will kind of sort of explain it a little bit better and why I think it's so important. I have an ISA. I also have a pension. They're both for my future. I'm not entirely sure exactly what they're for. It could be about early retirement. It could be for care if I need it. It may also be, I've got a daughter who's nearly 3. If we decide that we want to sort of send her to a fee-paying school, then that might be what I use. I know I can't touch my pension until I'm 57, so that's part of the plan. Whatever I put into that is sort of got a longer term time horizon on it. But I do get tax relief when I put money into the pension. My ISA is more accessible. I can touch it whenever I need, but I don't get the tax relief on anything that I put when it goes into it. So, that might be something that I use for school fees if I just go that route. I've got a different risk appetite for each pot because I have that different time horizon. The ISA, if I need it tomorrow, it's there. The pension, I can't touch it till I'm 57. So different time horizons, potentially different risk appetite. But my plan's not rigid. I need that structure to make sure that I make the most of what's available to me. But, my life could take all manner of twists and turns. I may not like the changes that come, but I know that, I've got something in place that can help take the pressure off, and that will allow me to sort of manage whatever I face. So that's why I think it's really important. It doesn't, like I said, it doesn't need to be rigid. It really does need to be flexible. But I think if you have something that you want, if you want early retirement, or if you want to be able to help the kids out, you've got to have something in place to enable you to do that, because it won't just happen unless you win the lottery, which is obviously entirely possible.
Very helpful indeed. And I think that for anyone that's watching this, it is really interesting, because I think you've just it put very simply just the importance of how the tax system can actually work to your advantage, as well as needing to understand the implications of it, and the different types of goals and aspirations that we might have, so that actually it's not just sort of one pot that goes into one place, that actually we are you can allocate things for, for different purposes and have a different approach to it. And I think that is incredibly important. And I think sort of sets out a really good starting point. Now, you talked a bit earlier about your passion for teaching financial well-being, whether it's in schools or, or other institutions and for other corporates and things. And just how important one's sense of, financial fitness, I know you're going to talk about it at the conference, but we'll talk about that a bit later, is, but can you talk about why financial wellness or well-being is so important?
Yeah, I think it's really important. I think it's changing a little bit now, but when I was in education, we weren't taught the basic finance. I learned a lot about an awful lot, but I didn't learn much about what I'd actually need for life skills. What's a pension, what's a mortgage, that wasn't covered. And I think I find myself in quite honestly a privileged position right now, because I do what I do, so I have that information, but it shouldn't be restricted access, and I'm really, really passionate about this. There's a lot of barriers that appear to be up around this, and part of that is my industry's fault. We do like to sort of keep this air of mystery around it a little bit, I think, and make it, but it's not, and it shouldn't be. And so that's why I'm really passionate about it, because I think everyone deserves sound financial education and support. So that's why we're doing what we're doing. We're trying to be that place that people can go to get that sort of education and support without sort of fear or judgment or price tag. We do so much. I think generally it's very much on the radar, doing so much for mental well-being and physical well-being. I mean, obviously we can always do more, but we are good at addressing those two areas. But a lot of mental well-being issues are born out of financial stress. So if we're not doing anything about the financial well-being aspect, then we're not treating the cause of some of these issues. So I'm so passionate about the fact that this really does need to be tackled. And we are doing a lot at Brewin Dolphin, which is another reason why I think it's such a great company, because it does see itself as in this position where it's our duty to do what we're trying to do. Obviously we're a business. As with any business, it is all about, new clients, more funds under management, et cetera, but not many people are sort of saying, well, actually we should be doing this, we should be going out to people, and we should be providing this education and support, because these barriers that I mentioned, they shouldn't be there. We're working with schools, we're going into schools and we're trying to educate school kids and also the teachers and parents, we're working with companies to go in and try and get in front of their employees as well, to sort of give them the support and education that they're telling us that they need. So this isn't necessarily us going in and saying, this is what we think you should know. We're trying to make it two-way. We're trying to find out what is it that is getting you worried and stressed and upset, and let us break that down and sort of explain it all for you. If you think about kids, they go to school and then they go off to uni. So at this point, they might get a student loan, they might get a credit card. If they choose not to go to uni and they don't get a job, then they're earning money for the first time. And these are huge financial events. They don't necessarily grasp the implications of thousands of pounds of debt when they take their student loan, or what credit actually is. Nobody sits them down and sort of says, maybe you should save some of what you've just earned this week or this month. These are things that really shouldn't be learned through trial and error. If we can teach them the basics, then hopefully we can avoid some stress for them and for their parents. So that that's why we're doing what we're doing. And there's lots of issues that affect women as well, more so than men, that we're trying to sort of address as well. For example, when women have kids, they might decide to take a career break. Maybe it's because if they look at, okay, well, I'm going to go back to work, these are what childcare costs. Childcare is going to eat up most of my salary. Nobody says to them, okay, well, if you take a career break at this point, have you thought about the fact that when you come back, maybe you can't come back at the same level? Maybe you have to take a step down. Maybe you won't earn as much. Career prospects, promotion prospects, earning prospects, that's all affected. And whilst you're not working, there's no pension contributions and you're not paying national insurance. So that's going to impact your state pension. I don't think you know, going back to work or not is completely a personal choice, and I'm not telling anyone what to do. I just think that we're not giving everyone all the information to make like a fully informed decision at that point. So that's just one tiny aspect of what we're trying to do, is we're trying to get out there and explain this stuff, so that people don't find themselves in stressful situations, and giving them the tools to you know to manage their own finances.
And it's just terribly important, and it's something that, you know, we are passionate about it at Really Help the Club as well, is that, you know, it's if you don't give people the opportunity to get access to this information, how on earth do you expect them to have that knowledge in the first place? And these are part of, we think, you know, wider life skills, which are incredibly important. And the academics are immensely important in that, you know, everything else that goes around a young person's school life and then their university life, you know, are absolutely important. However, these wider life skills are going to set them in really good stead as you stay, you know, at those different junctures as you go through life, where it's, okay, well, I had that talk about, you know, about, you know, if I do step out of the workplace, this is the potential implication. And as you say, it's making that that decision, but with knowledge, you know, with the fullness of knowledge. And what we know from all the other sort of talks and areas that we work in at Really Help the Club is the more information you have, and the correct and good and expert information, the more knowledge you have. And what we know is that knowledge leads to empowerment, and therefore you're making decisions with confidence. So it's financial well-being and a sense of financial confidence as well. Yeah. So when they get asked to take out that student loan or not, they have that confidence. Okay, I'm taking it out in the full knowledge that, or I am opting into my company pension fund with the full knowledge that, or I'm buying into this ISA, you know, so some of these other things you've talked about, and that is really empowering. Whereas to be denied that information, or just to not know it exists, is I think is really it explains a lot of the reasons why people don't necessarily save for their long-term future, and why, you know, why we have some of the problems that we do. And so thank you for sharing that, and thank you for the work you're doing in schools, and, you know, we hope we can do more with you in schools. Now, I touched on our Back to Business conference, which is at the end of September. It's at the 30th of September. So anyone watching this and would like to attend, it's online. It's going to be a brilliant morning of keynote talks and workshops and networking sessions. And Brewin Dolphin are one of our sponsors, which we are delighted about. And you'll get the chance to hear from Emma and also meet Emma, because she's going to run a workshop session for us as well. So Emma, without sort of stealing the thunder, you know, tell us a little bit. I know that the title of your talk is How to Get Financially Fit. As you mentioned, this is an incredibly important topic, you know, for everybody, but I think, you know, especially for women, you know, some of the reasons that you've talked about, but also because, you know, women are becoming incredibly important decision makers, whether it's as, you know, as senior management positions in corporates, whether it's the amount of wealth that our gender controls, which I think is now a third and rising, you know, in terms of the amount of the world's wealth. And more women are also launching and running their own businesses. I think it's 1 in 3 entrepreneurs that are women now. So whet our appetite of what we might hear from you on the 30th of September.
Sure. So I think it's about it starts with addressing why this is important, because, you know, we're very good at prioritizing, you know, things like our own mental health or physical health. You know, we're very good at working on ourselves or our homes. Getting to grips with the finances is often at the bottom of the to-do list and just kind of remains there. So it's addressing why this is important and why now is the time to act. But then also I'm very aware that, you know, because of these barriers that are up around this particular topic, that it can be quite scary and people don't know where to start or where to turn. So it's also about, you know, breaking it down into sort of manageable chunks and how to deal with those bits. So we talk about, first of all, what are the goals and aspirations? So, you know, we start with the good bit, start with the end, basically. take step backs to sort of show people how they can take steps to get from where they are now. First of all, understanding where they are now, but then how they can take steps to get where they want to be, and how they can create that plan for themselves. So yeah, I don't want to go into a huge amount of detail because I want people to come to the conference and hear it, but it is about breaking it down and making it manageable and giving people the tools and the tips to sort of start that themselves, because it is so important that we do that and don't ignore it.
Well, thank you, Emma. And so for anyone who would like to hear more from Emma, then please do book in for our conference. Information's on our website. We're sharing plenty of information and links across all our social media links. So there's no excuses for not knowing how to book. Emma, it's been a pleasure to talk to you. And, we've covered various different, sort of topics, from how you got into the world where you're working now, to learning more about Brewin, but also some of your passions, which I think are so interesting. And so my last question for you is, really, this sort of, I think, ties in with this whole piece that you do with the younger generation, is if you were standing in front of a mirror, talking to yourself, perhaps, in a different guise, as it were, what advice would you give to your younger self?
Wow, it's a big question.
It is, isn't it? No, well, obviously, stop.
Obviously, I would tell my younger self all about finances. I think it's quite evident. I've been quite open about that. I've always struggled with where I'm going. I've felt a little bit directionless. Probably still do to some extent sometimes. I think I would like to be able to tell myself not to worry and stress as much as maybe I have done in the past, because just get on with life. And I think if you can get bogged down with worrying about things like that, and I think I have done at times. So I would just sort of tell myself to just relax a little bit and let life happen, because it will work out okay. As long as you put the effort in and work in, you will get there. So I would probably tell myself not to worry about being directionless at times. And I think I'd also tell myself to trust myself and slow down a little bit. I think we often have a gut feeling about something, and it might be good or bad, but we don't often give it as much importance or weight as other things, because we can't explain it, we can't quantify it. But more often than not, that gut instinct is right. So I think I would tell myself to listen to that and trust myself, because that is hard to do at times, and I think it's really important.
Emma, thank you very much indeed. It's been fascinating. We'd love you to come back and share more. We can't wait to hear what you've got to say at the conference. But as ever, I've been scribbling notes all along, just summarising one or two things. But there's so much, to draw from what you said. But what I really loved was when you said, if you ignore the finances and your savings and your financial goals, then you're likely to miss out on opportunities and potentially not get where you want to be. And I think that's a really important lesson to us, to the younger generation and to ourselves. It's never too late to start that journey of understanding and know where you are in terms of your financial goals, because it helps you fulfill those dreams. And then the other bit that really struck me was when you said, I need to know what their dreams and aspirations are. I need to know how they're feeling about risk, and that then you get to know them as well as you can, and you can keep working on that and invest for them in order to make those dreams happen. And so thank you very much indeed for your time. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.